Hi, welcome back to US History Lecture Videos. I'm Mrs. Richardson. Today we're going to continue our lecture on the 1990s. So in the previous lesson, we kind of wrapped up Reagan's administration, moved into George H.W. Bush, the beginning of the 1990s. Today we're going to continue talking about the 1990s and also the Clinton era, kind of following presidencies. So specifically, we're going to look at political partisanship and anti-government movements, discuss President Clinton's foreign policy, and explain how George W. Bush, the second Bush, won the election of 2000, which is going to bring us to the end of the lectures for this class and almost to the end of our content. So by 1992, President George H. Bush, the senior, faced serious challenges to re-election. He'd broken his promise about no new taxes, which angered conservatives. Many felt he didn't go far enough in removing Saddam Hussein during Operation Desert Storm. And his New England and Ivy League background hurt him with working class Reagan Democrats. So the stage was set for a change in leadership. And Bill Clinton was the opponent. He was born in Hope, Arkansas as a baby boomer. His biological father died 3 months before his birth, and his stepfather was an alcoholic who abused the family. But despite his troubled home life, he excelled as a student and became interested in politics early and actually met President John F. Kennedy on a high school trip to Washington, D.C. He supported civil rights and anti-war movements, so he kind of appealed to the public. He won a scholarship to Oxford University and then later attended Yale Law School and became a law professor. He ran for Congress in 1974, narrowly lost, became Arkansas Attorney General in 1977, and then governor in 1978. Lost the governorship in 1980, reclaimed it in 1982, and remained governor for 10 years. So lots of political experience. Clinton described himself as a new Democrat who favored free trade and deregulation, promising higher taxes on the rich and welfare system reform, which is the opposite of what Reagan and Bush had run on, and people were again ready for change. He won with only 43% of the popular vote, but won the Electoral College by a lot. So Democrats took control of both houses of Congress. So they took control of the House of Representatives and the Senate and the presidency. So they were able to get a lot done. President Clinton took office during a recession and focused on fixing the economy. His plan was to limit spending and cut the $60 billion deficit debt, national debt. He kept interest rates low to encourage private investment, eliminated protection of tariffs to boost trade, so tariffs on goods that were being brought into the United States, and allocated more money for education. He expanded the earned income tax credit for working families near the poverty line, so tax breaks for those who really, really needed it. So the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1993. Why does this matter? It raised taxes on the top 1.2% of Americans and lowered taxes for 15 million low-income families. It offered tax breaks to 90% of small businesses and was a balanced approach to reducing the budget deficit. It also demonstrated the authority of the Democrats because they passed this act without a single Republican vote, and they still had the power of votes in order to pass it. So it didn't really matter what the Republicans thought. The Democrats had control of the presidency and the full Congress. NAFTA was an abbreviation for the North American Free Trade Agreement, and Clinton strongly supported this. NAFTA eliminated tariffs and trade restrictions among the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It was a treaty that was negotiated by the Bush administration and then signed in 1992. Some people in Congress opposed it, but Clinton added some agreements to protect workers and the environment, and it was ratified in late 1993 under Clinton's presidency. Then focused on kind of uniting the economies of the United States, Canada, and Mexico with trade and supporting each other. During Clinton's administration, the nation experienced nearly 10 consecutive years of the economy growing. Job growth increased year after year after year. The deficit or the debt shrank dramatically. The annual budget deficit fell from $290 billion to $230 billion. That's $60 billion. Huge numbers. Huge numbers. Reduced government borrowing freed up capital for private sector use, and lower interest rates fueled more economic growth. More people owned homes than ever before, and inflation dropped, and so did unemployment. During the 1990s, prosperity was also linked to technological change and new information systems. We get computers. we get the internet. We get the beginning of what we know today as the information age. Personal computers becoming common in businesses and upper middle class homes. The use of modems and phone lines to share information, and President Clinton created the first ever White House official website, which, has been continued by every president. Clinton also made healthcare reform a goal on his agenda, and he appointed his wife, Hillary Clinton, to head the task force on healthcare reform. Um, Ultimately, they created a plan that provided universal healthcare coverage to all Americans, and the plan would prevent insurance companies from rejecting people with pre-existing conditions, right? Like if you're already sick, a health insurance company can deny you health insurance, and this was trying to prevent that. Initially, the plan had support, but it was ultimately defeated. As the midterm elections of 1994 approached, Republicans recognized the value of opposing reform. And here we get, the motivation of people wanting to get reelected, changing their political policies. So the healthcare bill died in Congress in September 1994. It was never passed. Because the Republicans gained 7 Senate seats and 52 House seats in the 1994 elections, and then pushed for more conservative reforms. So the Democrats lost their exclusive control of Congress in order to push through healthcare reform. President Clinton also promised to end the ban on gays and lesbians serving in the military. Yes, there was a ban on gay and lesbians serving in the military. Disturbing, right? After taking office, he compromised with conservatives by adopting a don't ask, don't tell policy. If you didn't tell, you wouldn't be asked. However, if you were openly gay as a service member, you could be fired or dismissed. This compromise satisfied nobody. And in 1996, Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriage as between opposite sex couples, which was a hit to the LGBTQ community, trying to promote same-sex marriage. Though he was personally opposed to the Defense of Marriage Act, Clinton later called for its repeal and changed his position on same-sex marriage. So he actually kind of changed his mind later on. Okay, last couple slides here. Domestic terrorism. Okay, well, in 1994, Clinton signed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which was the largest federal crime law ever. It expanded police forces, built more prisons, and increased penalties for crimes. It expanded the number of crimes punishable by death and created an assault weapons ban. But in 1955, someone bombed the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children who were in a daycare center in the facility. As a result of the Violent Crime Act that had been passed, the domestic terrorist, the person who did the bombing, McVeigh, was executed in 2001 for the worst act of terrorism on American soil that had taken place at that time. This was before this September 11th, 2001 attacks that would come later and are now known as the worst acts of terrorism taking place on American soil. To the right here is a picture of what the building looked like after it was bombed. So this really rocked the country and led to a wave of stronger laws. All right. So we're going to get wrapping up on Clinton here. As much as Clinton did, he ultimately faced being impeached as president because he had a sexual relationship with a White House intern who was half his age. He initially denied the relationship, but later admitted to inappropriate relations. So this brought international attention to the presidency for reasons we don't like. And essentially, he was impeached, but then acquitted. He was the first president found in contempt of court, and despite this scandal, he was allowed to continue as president for the rest of his second term, left office with a 66% approval rating. And then in 2000, his vice president, Al Gore, ran for president, but lost to George W. Bush in a controversial Florida vote recount. Some people still argue that Al Gore should have won. The vote was very, very close, came down to the last state, which had to be recounted, and people questioned the legitimacy of that vote. But in the end, it was decided that George W. Bush would become president. He's elected in 2000, takes over in early 2001, and in less than a year, has to deal with the attack of 9/11 and the resulting war that follows that, which we're not going to cover in this class. We stop at the year 2000, roughly, although there are a few lessons that you can read forward ahead if you want. Essentially, this is the end of our course content. We get to the 2000s and we stop there. I hope you enjoyed all of these lecture videos and textbook lessons discovering the more recent section of U.S. history. And thanks for following along with me.